Hello there. So I'm on my second day of being here, and it was only really this morning that I realised I'm actually in a gated community. First time I've ever been in such a place. When we drove here from the airport, we did pass a guard, and the gate was open for us. Pretty obvious, really, but it was all a bit too much to take in at the time. So I do feel in a profoundly altered state of consciousness now, and I'm well aware that that's partly due to some sleep deprivation, also due to taking in everything that is going on. And as happened last night, there's a small black cat who lives here, and she's taken on to do what she did last night when I was really overcharged after lots of fascinating conversations and taking in a huge amount of information from both Ahmed and Reshma. And she sat on my lap and she started doing what cats do. Let me see if I can show you. I don't know, it's just a black blob, isn't it? Hard for you to see. Oh, there we are, there she is. There she is. So she's giving me this massage with the claws around about the solar plexus, between the solar plexus and the sacral area. And when she did that for me last night, after about 5 or 10 minutes, I could feel that she had succeeded in doing what cats are so good at doing. For people with electrosensitivity, people who've had the experience of ME, autism, these sorts of situations, people who take in a lot of information from their environment, more than most people do. We need ways to release. There are a number you can use, and certainly when I'm by the sea, I get into the sea, and that's fantastic. When I'm living next to Glastonbury, I can go into the White Spring. But what I've got here, of course, I've got a cold shower, which I do have every day. I'm sure I'm going to have cold showers. But she is really so good at drawing out that excess energy from my physical system, which is accumulated as a result of information input. And you can see just being here is an information input situation. But I do feel especially nourished by the trees. This area, which might at first glance seem quite small, it probably is much larger than I realise. That is a source of great comfort for me, and also a way that I can discharge accumulated energy simply by being present with the gentle swaying movements of the particular plant, the large tree out there. That I find soothing. I am actually sitting in a pyramid. It's a copper pyramid, the sort of thing that we have in Glastonbury actually. There's a copper pyramid, and this is also a really helpful thing to do, and I find my mind becoming much quieter. This is a beautiful paradox. I'm living in a place with far more stimulation than what I'm used to, living in a quiet little street just at the edge of Glastonbury. Here I am living in, as I said it before, I'll say it again, 13 million people. That really takes my breath away. I had no idea that I'd be coming to a city significantly larger than London, and that's the reality. So it's day 2, and I haven't actually stepped out of this building. I think it's 12 floors for someone at the moment, and there's probably well over 1,000 people living in this tower block complex, which has got its own guarded entrance and exit. That's quite something to take on board. And something else I will share with you is that it's taking a little organising, and that's usually the way in India. So I've now an Indian SIM card in my phone, thanks to Ahmed and the team. So I'll explain this while I'm here. What we have is we have 2 flats on 2 levels. Reshma is on level 5, Ahmed and I are on level 7. And in both of these apartments we have the staff. and the staff come and go, and there is certainly a most fascinating relationship between the staff and Ahmed and Reshma. And what I'm beginning to understand, and it does seem to be it's a no-brainer when you think about it, but it's an alien concept to me, being English and being from the social stratum I'm from. But out here, if you're able to do so, the best thing to do is to employ people, because by employing people you're giving them a life and a livelihood. And so there's a number of stuff, and I think I might have encountered 5 people so far, and they come and they go, and in the morning, whoever's the one that comes in the morning is fed by Reshma. She makes his breakfast for him, and that really hit me hard, because it's like, if your employer feeds you good food, that is one beautiful way to start your day when you think about it. And I know that I've never experienced that as an employee in my life, but if I had, it's like, wow, I would just be so much more wanting to be in service, being looked after in that way. It just feels really nice. So, talking a little bit about the view, I'm going to do my best with this device to zero in a bit. So you can see there's a row of concrete pillars. So the concrete pillars are what is going to support the metro, which is due to be running in 2026, I believe it is. And it just seems like, wow, what an enormous undertaking. And the infinity of these concrete pillars is the beginning of that process. I've already had some really fascinating conversations on such wide subjects as finance, through to menstruation and traditional beliefs that women have about menstruation in this part of the world. And I'll share a little tiny snippet about that with you, because what I have become aware of from listening to Reshma, she's been studying the cycle in a way that I've never had anyone do so before. She's relating it to emotional states and also to dietary considerations, but in more detail than anything I've heard before. And the point that she's making is that there are times in the cycle, particularly after the menstruation is actually completed and they're on what I would call the up cycle, and that's a time when there is an increased sociability, and this peaks around ovulation, where of course there's a very strong impulse to connect with the one that you love, with the possibility of conceiving, and that in those 2 phases it's really appropriate, especially if you're an employee working in a business, to organise all your business lunches and meetings in those 2 parts of the cycle. And then in the cycle 3, part 3, which is the preparation for the menstruation itself, that's when the impulse arises to become more inward. And then towards the end of that, we have the very strong desire to change the diet. And in England it's very well known that women are very keen to have chocolate, and there's very good reasons for that. And then the actual menstruation itself, which is the shedding of the blood, and that's a time where it's so appropriate to go even more deeply inwards. So what she's explaining is you've got these first 2 phases immediately after menstruation, and ovulation being times of great sociability, connectivity, being with people, being more extrovert, followed by the preparation for menstruation itself, and the menstruation itself, the bleeding, where it's all about becoming much more inward. And what she's discovered is that it's really helpful to be aware of the fact that a woman can feel so much more at peace when she starts to regulate her diet. And Reshma's into intermittent fasting, and the explanation that she's giving is that intermittent fasting is particularly helpful for women in phase 1 and 2, that is the after the menstrual blood has ceased, all the way up to and including ovulation. And even in the third phase, the starting to become more humid phase, even there, I've forgotten the word, it'll come to me in a moment. Intermittent fasting approach is also useful, but you're changing the number of hours per day, you're reducing the amount of time you're fasting for. And when it comes towards the end of that third phase and the fourth phase menstruation, it's important to not to do any fasting whatsoever, and to give free rein to whatever impulses you have, to be aware that you're going to want to be having more carbs, more sugars. And what she discovered, she's been doing this for more than 3 years now, and she's discovered that by following this pattern, she is far more fulfilled and at peace than she's ever been in her life. And so this is affecting diet and also sociability, and even being connected with your partner. All these things are all being drawn together by this process. So I'm concluding by the 2 statements. My first one is, I am being exposed to all sorts of information I had no inkling would come my way. And I'm only giving you a little tiny taste. That's one conversation. There's been a whole bunch of conversations while I've been here so far. So that's the first part. And the second part is that, boy, I certainly do need to go within and go inward. And when I do so, I find myself in a really profoundly altered state of consciousness. Something I don't feel when I'm in England. And paradoxically, I go into states of much deeper peace out here than I do when I'm in the UK. When I'm in the UK, I'm much more likely to be in action mode. And here I'm beginning to realise that I need to be still, and I need to be, well, my mind just becomes very quiet. And it might be something to do with the heat. The heat causes such a deep corporeal relaxation. My mind goes into a state of quiescence, which is wonderful. So, can I do this? Yes, there you are. Here is my ally. Here is one of my guides. Very grateful to her for her presence in my life here. So, another unexpected privilege of being here is the spirits of the cat medicine, and also dog medicine, about which I'll talk about some other time. All the love to you.